imagine plummeting 16,000 feet toward the earth, right? But your parachute is completely broken.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you hit the ground, shatter your spine in this horrific impact, and doctors tell you that you might actually never walk again.
Which is just a terrifying thing to hear.
Right. But now, imagine that just a few years later, you're standing on the freezing, oxygen-starved summit of Mount Everest.
It's almost unbelievable.
It really is. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a man who basically survived the impossible and then, built an absolute empire on the whole concept of human endurance.
Reaching over 1 billion viewers worldwide, I mean, that is no small feat.
Exactly. But as we're combing through these sources, the biographies, behind-the-scenes interviews, the raw production logs, we see that his absolute biggest test of survival wasn't actually out in the freezing cold.
No, it wasn't.
It was a massive public scandal, one that threatened to just completely destroy his entire career and reputation. We are, of course, talking about the world's most famous survivalist, Bear Grylls.
Yeah, and the clash here between authentic life-or-death survival and, well, the mechanics of reality television is what makes this story so fascinating.
Oh, cool.
Because to really grasp the magnitude of the scandal, you have to understand the foundation of the guy's actual real-world resume first.
Right, because it contrasts so sharply with that mud and bugs, rugged loner image we all saw on TV.
Exactly. So for starters, his legal name is Edward Michael Grylls.
Wait, his name isn't Bear?
Nope. He was actually given the nickname Bear by his older sister when he was just like a week old.
Oh, wow. I always assumed it was like a tough guy nickname he gave himself later.
No, just a cute baby nickname. And he definitely wasn't raised in some remote cabin or a rough neighborhood.
Right.
He actually grew up in an environment of immense wealth and privilege. His father was Sir Michael Grylls.
So Michael.
Yeah, a very prominent conservative politician and a member of the elite Royal Yacht Squadron.
So, super upper crust.
Very much so. Just to put that in perspective, the Royal Yacht Squadron is one of the most exclusive high society sailing clubs in the entire world. They have deep ties to the British royal family.
Wow.
And Bear actually attended Eton College, which is arguably the most prestigious boarding school on the planet. It's educated generations of aristocrats and prime ministers.
So the guy we watched demonstrating how to, sleep inside a dead camel on television was actually raised in the absolute upper echelons of British high society.
He was. But to be fair to him, from a very young age, his father taught him to climb and sail. It really instilled this relentless drive in him.
He wasn't just sitting around having tea.
Right. He didn't just casually dabble in outdoor pursuits between fancy dinners. As a teenager, he actually earned a second Dan black belt in Shotokan karate.
Okay, that's impressive.
And rather than taking the traditional Eton route like graduating and going straight into some comfortable corporate job or politics, he spent time hiking through the Himalayan mountains in India. Yeah, and then he made the decision to join the military. He served as a reservist in the 21 SS Regiment.
The Special Air Service?
Yeah.
I mean, even for a reservist unit, my understanding is that the selection process for the SAS is notoriously brutal.
It's insane.
You don't just, sign a paper and get in.
Right.
They actively try to break you physically and mentally just to see if you'll quit.
The physical demands are almost unimaginable for an average civilian. We are talking about marching for miles across freezing, treacherous terrain.
With heavy gear, I assume.
Oh, yeah. Incredibly heavy loads, plus sleep deprivation, extreme navigational tests. And he made it through all of that.
But then his military career came to a pretty sudden end, right?
It did. A terrifying end in 1996 down in Zambia. He was conducting a free-fall parachuting exercise, jumping from an altitude of 16,000 feet.
Which is just so high up.
Right. And when he pulled his ripcord, the canopy of his parachute tore and just completely failed to inflate properly.
That is the ultimate nightmare scenario. I mean, you were 3 miles up, falling at terminal velocity, and the one piece of fabric keeping you alive just gives out.
It's horrifying. So he plummeted to the ground and actually landed directly on his parachute pack, which ended up fracturing 3 vertebrae in his back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's considered one of the highest falls anyone has ever survived without a fully functional parachute.
That's a miracle.
It is. He spent months in military rehabilitation, and they were entirely unsure if he'd ever regain full mobility, let alone return to any extreme sports.
I can't even imagine the pain.
He was in a heavy brace, dealing with agonizing pain, yet he focused all of his mental energy on this one childhood dream. And just 18 months after breaking his back, at the age of 23, he climbed to the summit of Mount Everest.
Honestly, knowing the physical toll that altitude takes on a perfectly healthy human body, the fact that he did it with a recently shattered spine is staggering.
It really is a testament to his willpower.
But what I found so fascinating in the sources is that alongside these genuinely heroic feats, he also pursued some of the most bizarre, almost comical world records.
Oh, they're wildly theatrical.
It really paints a picture of a guy who just literally cannot sit still.
Yeah, like in 2005, he organized the highest open-air formal dinner party.
Which sounds completely made up.
Right. He and a team went up in a hot air balloon to 25,000 feet. Then they climbed down ropes to a table suspended underneath the basket.
Just dangling in the sky.
Yes, and at 25,000 feet, the temperature is brutally cold, like around minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
Hmm.
And the air pressure is so low that you'd pass out from hypoxia in minutes without supplemental oxygen. So they did this wearing full military mess, dress-like formal uniforms, and oxygen masks.
How do you even eat like that?
Well, they had to systematically hold their breath, pull off their masks, shove a bite of freezing food into their mouths, chew furiously, and then put the masks back on before losing consciousness.
That is insane.
They actually managed a 3-course meal this way.
The logistics of that are absolutely absurd. It's like a stunt from a rejected James Bond script.
Exactly. He also holds a Guinness World Record for the longest continuous indoor freefall. He spent over an hour and a half suspended in a vertical wind tunnel to raise money for charity.
Wow.
He is just a man of intense extremes, and that actually extends to his personal convictions, too. He's deeply religious, frequently calling his Christian faith the backbone of his life.
Right. Didn't he make headlines recently for something related to that?
Yeah, he helped baptize the comedian Russell Brand in the River Thames in London.
Okay, so when you lay all of that out, the SAS training, surviving a 16,000-foot fall, conquering Everest, and these insane atmospheric dinner parties, the obvious question is, why would a guy with this legitimate, undisputed pedigree ever need to fake anything on a television show?
It's a great question.
If he genuinely did all of this in real life, why resort to Hollywood magic?
And that question brings us directly to the creation of his hit show, Man vs. Wild, or Born Survivor, as it was called over in the UK.
Right.
The premise was super captivating. The network would take this highly trained survival expert, drop him into the most inhospitable remote environments on the planet with nothing but a knife, a flint, and a water bottle, and watch him fight his way back to civilization.
Which is a great hook.
Huge hook. The show reached an estimated 1.2 billion viewers, but the foundation of that massive success was absolute trust.
Viewers really believed they were getting a raw, unflinching look at human desperation.
Exactly. But television production is an industry, and behind the scenes, a survival consultant named Mark Weinert grew increasingly uncomfortable with the massive gap between what was happening on location and what was being broadcast to those billion viewers.
So Weiner decides to blow the whistle.
He did. He spoke to the press and just peeled back the curtain on the entire operation.
And the details of this deception are just wild. Like, if you were watching the Sierra Nevada Mountains episode, you saw Bear Grylls bravely sleeping out in the wilderness, right?
Right, tucked under a rock.
Yeah, he's under this rock ledge to survive the freezing night, rubbing his hands together by a tiny, struggling fire. You can almost feel the cold watching him on the screen.
Well, when the cameras stopped rolling for the day, the reality was entirely different. Bear was not sleeping under that rock.
Let me guess, he had a tent off camera.
Better, he and the production crew were staying at the Pines Resort at Bass Lake.
A resort?
Yeah, this isn't just a basic motel. It's a cozy, family-friendly vacation resort. So while the viewer thinks he's shivering in the dirt, risking hypothermia, he actually has access to a hot tub, a warm bed, and high-speed internet.
Oh my gosh. So he was probably enjoying like a full breakfast of pancakes and coffee before driving back out to the wilderness set the next morning to film himself biting the head off a snake.
That is exactly what was happening.
The whiplash of going from a warm hot tub to biting a live snake's head off is just hard to wrap my head around.
Oh, it gets better. The staging went far beyond his sleeping arrangements.
What else?
In that same Sierra Nevada episode, he has this incredible encounter with wild mustangs. He talks on camera about what a rare privilege it is to see these majestic, untamed animals in the wild, and he manages to lasso one to use as transport.
I remember that scene. It was so dramatic.
Well, Mark Weiner revealed the truth about those horses. They were not wild in the slightest.
No way.
They were completely tame, domesticated animals that the production team had just rented from a local trekking station.
You're kidding.
Nope. They were literally loaded into horse trailers, trucked up into the mountains, and let loose just before the camera started rolling so Bear could, quote-unquote, tame them.
Okay, if they were willing to fake his interaction with prey animals, they were definitely willing to fake the predators, right? I mean, you can't have a guy named Bear without him facing off against an actual bear. There's that famous scene in the Rocky Mountains where he's alone in the woods, the camera is shaking, he's whispering frantically about hearing heavy footsteps,
Yep.
and you see this shadowy, menacing figure of a grizzly bear lurking just near his camp.
It created an incredible moment of tension on television.
It really did.
But investigations later confirmed that the grizzly bear stalking him was actually just a crew member dressed in a large bear suit.
A bear suit?
Yeah.
You have got to be kidding me.
I wish I was. The network later tried to mitigate the embarrassment by claiming it was just a practical joke played by the crew on Bear.
Right, sure it was.
But the undeniable fact is that the producers edited it into the final cut of the episode as a dramatic, life-threatening moment of survival for the audience to consume.
Wow. And it wasn't just the wildlife, right? They completely fabricated his actual survival skills on camera, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Hawaii, he's supposed to be stranded on a deserted island. He meticulously builds this traditional Polynesian raft out of bamboo and palm leaves to escape across the open ocean. Watching it, you think, this guy's ingenuity is unbelievable.
Yeah, about that raft. It was built entirely by a team of professional builders led by Weinert.
Of course it was.
They spent hours making sure it was structurally sound, and once the raft was perfectly constructed and tested, the crew took it completely apart.
Wait, why would they take it apart?
They laid all the pieces out on the beach so that Bear could be filmed putting it back together himself, making it look like he fabricated it from scratch.
So watching him build a life-saving raft to escape a deserted island is basically like watching someone assemble pre-drilled IKEA furniture on a beach.
That is the absolute perfect analogy, and perhaps the most theatrical, over-the-top example of this was at Mount Kilauea, an active volcano.
Oh, I've got to hear this.
Bear is shown navigating these terrifying lava fields, warning the audience about the deadly sulfur dioxide smoke that could suffocate him at any moment.
Very dramatic.
But the natural environment wasn't visually dramatic enough for television. To solve this, the crew brought in hot coals to scatter around to make the ground look more treacherous.
They brought hot coals to a volcano.
Yes, and they literally plugged in industrial smoke machines to create the illusion of toxic, suffocating volcanic gas billowing around him.
Industrial smoke machines on a survival show. So what drives a production to go to these extreme lengths? I mean, why manufacture a fake volcano and a guy in a bear suit for a man who has genuinely climbed Mount Everest?
Well, it comes down to the fundamental economics of television production. A show like this costs millions of dollars per season.
Right, that makes sense.
When they go on location, they are bringing a massive crew camera operators, sound technicians, field producers, local fixers, and directors.
It's a huge operation.
Exactly. So if Bear Grylls actually stays out in the freezing cold and contracts hypothermia, or if he's genuinely kicked by a wild, untamed Mustang and breaks a leg, production halts entirely.
And all that money goes down the drain.
Millions of dollars are instantly lost, people lose their jobs, the network schedule is ruined, and the insurance companies underwriting the production simply will not allow their multi-million-dollar star asset to be in genuine, uncontrolled, mortal danger day after day.
That's a really good point.
The illusion of danger is required to get the high ratings, but the safety of a hotel and a script is required to keep the insurance premiums manageable.
From a corporate risk management standpoint, that makes total sense. Faking a volcano with a smoke machine is ultimately just Hollywood magic, it's entertainment.
Sure.
But here is where the sources show the controversy taking a much darker, much more serious turn. Because the show wasn't just pitched as entertainment.
No, it wasn't.
It was explicitly pitched as a how-to guide for survival. If you found yourself lost in the wilderness, these are the techniques you were supposed to use to stay alive.
And that was the crux of the real backlash. It wasn't just that he slept in a warm bed. It was that the techniques he was demonstrating were heavily manipulated, and if a viewer actually tried to replicate them in an emergency, they could easily be killed.
Which is terrifying. The most infamous example of this involves his extreme eating and hydration tactics, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
He was famous for consuming the most revolting things imaginable. Live spiders, raw goat testicles. He even cooked a dead mouse in a stew using urine provided by the actress Michelle Rodriguez during a celebrity episode.
Just disgusting.
But the moment that really set off the survivalist community was the elephant dung incident in the Kenyan savannah.
Oh, that episode. So Baron is shown desperately looking for hydration in the brutal African heat. He finds a large pile of fresh elephant dung, picks it up, and literally squeezes a steady stream of liquid out of the feces directly into his mouth. And he claims to the audience that it contains essential moisture that could save your life.
It's just a shocking television moment. But rival survivalists, specifically Les Stroud from the much more authentic show Survivorman, publicly called him out on this.
He did. Stroud explained that herbivore digestion is highly efficient. It is physically impossible to wring clear, drinkable water out of elephant dung with your bare hands like a wet sponge.
So where did the liquid come from?
The only reason liquid came pouring out on camera was because the cameraman had heavily pre-soaked the dung with bottled water before they started rolling.
Wow. So imagine you're actually stranded in a desert environment. You're severely dehydrated, your cognitive function is dropping, and you remember watching Bear Grylls do this on television.
Right.
What actually happens if you try to replicate it with actual animal feces?
You would basically sign your own death warrant. Real elephant feces are teeming with coliform bacteria. If you ingest that liquid, those bacteria aggressively attack your gut lining, causing severe inflammation.
That sounds awful.
Your body's immediate defense mechanism is to flush the gastrointestinal tract, which leads to violent vomiting and dysentery. In a survival situation in 100-degree heat, losing liters of fluid an hour to a diarrheal disease will kill you exponentially faster than standard dehydration.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second, though. Isn't it safer for the production to stage the scenario with bottled water?
How do you mean?
Well, it allows them to demonstrate the extreme concept of finding moisture anywhere without risking Bear actually dying of dysentery on camera.
The intention might be a safe demonstration, sure, but the danger arises entirely from the lack of transparency.
Because the audience doesn't know it's fake.
Exactly. When they don't know it's a simulation, they take the advice as literal, tested gospel. We see this with his frequent advice to drink your own urine to stave off dehydration.
Oh, right, he did that all the time.
The biological mechanism of urine is that your kidneys filter your blood to pull out excess sodium, urea, and toxins. When you drink it, you are putting a highly concentrated saline and toxin solution back into your stomach.
Which sounds like a bad idea.
A terrible idea. To process that excess sodium, your body actually has to pull intracellular water out of your tissues to dilute it in the kidneys. This means you will ultimately urinate out more water than you took in.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's very similar to drinking seawater. It rapidly accelerates dehydration, yet he casually demonstrated it as a viable hydration hack.
If his advice on finding water was that biologically dangerous, what about his advice on dealing with predators? Because there was a moment where he told the audience how to handle a bear encounter.
Right. Yes, and that was perhaps the most universally condemned piece of advice by wildlife experts.
What did he say to do?
In an episode where he encounters a bear, he tells the audience that the best thing to do is turn and run away.
Run away from a bear.
Biologically, bears have an incredibly strong prey drive. If you run, you trigger that instinct and they will chase you.
And you can't outrun a bear.
Not even close. A grizzly bear can run upwards of 30 miles per hour over rough terrain. A human cannot outrun them.
So what should you do?
The universally accepted protocol is to stand your ground, back away very slowly, speak in a calm voice, and avoid any sudden movements. Running is literally the worst possible thing you can do.
So we have a survival expert telling millions of people to trigger a bear's prey drive by running, to accelerate their dehydration by drinking urine, and to risk lethal dysentery by squeezing water out of animal feces.
It's a recipe for disaster.
When the whistleblower came forward and all of these leaks hit the press, the hotels, the fake rafts, the crew in the bear suit, the public uproar must have been just deafening.
Oh, it was a massive international scandal. In 2008, Channel 4 in the UK launched a strict internal investigation. Discovery Channel actually temporarily pulled the show from their schedule while they frantically figured out how to handle the PR nightmare.
People must have been so angry.
Viewers felt deeply betrayed. They'd invested years emotionally buying into the myth of this solitary, rugged survivor facing nature completely alone.
He had built a brand on being the toughest man alive. How do you even recover from being outed for sleeping at a family resort?
It wasn't easy.
How is he still on television today?
Well, he realized he had to face the music head on. Bear issued a very public, humbling apology to the BBC.
What did he say?
He was surprisingly candid, actually. He said, if people felt misled on how the first series was represented, I'm really sorry for that. He looked right at the camera and admitted, the truth is much less exciting.
At least he owned it.
He confessed the logistics, too. He explained that they filmed the episodes over 6 intensive days, and after getting the necessary night shots of him pretending to sleep, he would pack up and go back to a base camp lodge or a motel with the crew.
The network obviously had to pivot their entire marketing strategy to save their star.
Exactly. The producers promised to be 100% transparent moving forward. They started adding clear, unmissable disclaimers to the beginning of every single episode.
Like a warning label.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
These disclaimers stated that Bear received support in life-threatening situations and, crucially, that some situations are specifically presented to demonstrate survival techniques.
Ah, I see.
They employed what became known as the how-to defense. They argued that the show was never meant to be an observational documentary about a man trying not to die. It was an educational guide setting up staged scenarios to teach the viewer what to do in extreme environments.
Even after that massive apology and the promise of 100% transparency, reading through these production logs, well, they just couldn't resist utilizing a little bit of that Hollywood magic, could they?
Old habits in television production die very hard. Even in later seasons, when they were supposedly operating under total transparency, the staging continued.
Really? Like what?
There is a famous season 6 episode shot in Norway. Bear is shown trying to survive a brutal, terrifying windstorm on the edge of a cliff.
Okay.
The wind is battering him so intensely that it actually makes him cry on camera, and he shouts over the noise that if you were caught in this natural weather event, you'd be dead.
It looks like an incredibly dramatic, visceral moment of man battling the elements.
It looks incredible right up until you find out that there was no natural windstorm that day.
Wait, what?
The production crew had rented giant, industrial-sized wind machines, hauled them all the way up the mountain, and blasted him with artificial wind to create the dramatic effect for the camera.
Industrial wind machines on the edge of a cliff just to make him cry.
Yep.
It really makes you wonder about the nature of what we watch. You know, just knowing that the crew set up a fake bamboo raft, or that a guy was running around the woods in a bear suit, or that they used wind machines in Norway, does that ruin the entertainment value for you? Or is that exactly what makes good television?
Well, ultimately, the audience voted with their remotes, and they decided they just didn't care enough about the fabrication to stop watching. The show continued to be a massive global success.
It's wild.
Bear Grylls went on to host Running Wild, taking massive celebrities like Channing Tatum, Natalie Portman, and even a sitting president, Barack Obama, out into the wilderness. He built an empire of books, designed specialized survival gear, and even became the chief scout of the UK Scout Association.
It is a remarkable journey. So, to synthesize everything we've looked at today, Bear Grylls is not a fraud when it comes to his physical pedigree.
Not at all.
He is a legitimately tough, highly skilled adventurer, a former SAS reservist, and a man who conquered Everest after breaking his back. But he starred in a heavily fabricated television show to teach real, though sometimes deeply flawed and biologically dangerous, survival concepts.
All while carefully maintaining the profitable illusion of a life-or-death struggle. It was essentially a fabricated classroom masquerading as a gritty documentary.
Exactly.
And this raises an important question to leave you with, something to mull over long after this deep dive is finished. We all claim we want absolute, unedited reality in our entertainment. We demand authenticity.
We do say that.
But if a television network actually gave us 100% reality, just a guy sitting entirely alone in the woods for 6 days without a script, slowly starving, mostly just sitting perfectly still under a log to conserve energy, with no fake bear attacks and no dramatic wind machines, would we actually watch it? Or do we secretly prefer the Hollywood illusion of danger?
Maybe we just want the thrill of survival without the boring reality of actual survival. Keep questioning the reality of the media you consume, and we will catch you next time